Every night, millions of people crawl into sleeping bags inside national parks, remote forests, and untamed mountain ranges, then peacefully drift off beneath the stars. They sleep in territories shared with wolves, mountain lions, bears, and other powerful predators, yet almost none of those campers are ever attacked. That sounds perfectly ordinary until you stop and examine the situation through the eyes of a hunter. From a predator's perspective, the entire scene should make almost no sense. You are stretched out on the ground, unconscious and completely unaware of what may be moving beyond the thin walls of your tent. You cannot run, defend yourself, or even see danger approaching. Your breathing creates noise, your body releases heat, and your scent travels through the darkness like an invisible signal. Biologically speaking, you resemble an unattended package of meat lying motionless in the wilderness. By nearly every definition, you should look like the easiest prey imaginable. So this raises a deeply fascinating question. If large predators are already roaming nearby, why do they almost never try to eat you? The answer is far stranger than most people expect, because the first thing you need to understand is that those animals almost certainly know you are there. In many cases, they detected your presence long before you finished setting up camp. A bear can pick up scents from astonishing distances, building a detailed picture of its surroundings through smell alone. Under the right conditions, a wolf can hear sounds so faint that a human would never notice them. A mountain lion may silently watch you from an uncomfortably short distance without giving you the slightest clue that it is nearby. While you stare into the darkness and wonder what might be hiding between the trees, something may already be studying every movement you make. These predators are not overlooking you. They are not wandering past because they somehow failed to notice your scent, your food, or the noises coming from your campsite. They may know exactly where you are. The real mystery is why they deliberately choose to remain at a distance. To understand that choice, we need to abandon the popular image of predators as fearless killing machines that attack whenever an opportunity appears. Most people imagine wolves, bears, and big cats as aggressive hunters constantly waiting for their next chance to strike. The reality is almost the opposite. Successful predators do not remain alive because they are endlessly brave. They survive because they are careful. In the wild, even a relatively small injury can quietly become a death sentence. A wolf that breaks a leg during a hunt may never catch another animal. A wounded big cat can slowly starve after losing the speed or strength required to bring down prey. A bear that takes one unnecessary risk may pay an enormous price for a single mistake. That is why evolution rewarded something even more valuable than aggression: caution. Every major predator alive today descends from countless generations of animals that learned when to attack and, just as importantly, when to walk away. This is where humans become especially confusing, because we behave unlike almost anything these predators normally hunt. A deer follows recognizable patterns. So do rabbits, elk, wild goats, antelope, and boars. Predators have spent millions of years learning how to read those animals, almost like familiar pages in an ancient book. When prey senses danger, it runs. When it detects a threat, its body reacts. When something begins chasing it, it responds in ways the predator already understands. A sleeping human does none of those things. You can remain almost completely motionless for hours, breathing slowly without attempting to escape or reacting to the animal's presence. You do not behave like prey, and that unnatural stillness creates something far more powerful than hunger. It creates distrust. Animal behavior experts use the term neophobia to describe this reaction. In simple terms, neophobia means fear of anything unfamiliar. Many large predators possess this instinct far more strongly than most people realize. When you think about how nature works, that caution makes perfect sense. In the wilderness, something unfamiliar can easily become something dangerous. A new scent, an unnatural sound, or a silhouette that does not resemble anything an animal recognizes may signal a threat it has never encountered before. When a predator discovers something it cannot understand, avoiding it is usually the safest possible response. Human beings trigger that defensive instinct almost perfectly. Our clothes carry chemical and artificial scents that do not naturally belong in a forest. The food stored around our campsites releases rich, unusual aromas that can travel far through the night air. We surround ourselves with metal, plastic, synthetic fabrics, electronics, and other materials that never existed in the environments where these animals evolved. Even our natural body odor differs noticeably from that of most wild mammals. To a predator, a human being does not fit comfortably into any familiar category. We do not look or behave like normal prey. We do not move like another recognized predator. We seem less like part of the ecosystem and more like some strange object that was suddenly placed inside it. In the natural world, anything that appears strange is usually approached with hesitation rather than confidence. However, unfamiliarity is only the first layer of the explanation. There is another reason hidden much deeper inside the evolutionary history shared by humans and large predators. For hundreds of thousands of years, human beings have hunted, trapped, driven away, and killed dangerous animals. This conflict began long before modern cities, organized agriculture, written language, or anything resembling civilization existed. Our earliest ancestors were already competing with wolves, bears, and powerful wild cats for territory, shelter, and valuable sources of food. Generation after generation, predators that wandered too close to humans placed themselves in extraordinary danger. Over time, this repeated conflict created a remarkable evolutionary effect. Natural selection gradually began favoring the animals that treated humans with greater caution. Predators that avoided human settlements had a better chance of surviving. Those that kept their distance lived long enough to produce more offspring. Animals that ignored the warning signs, approached too often, or behaved too boldly were more likely to disappear. Across thousands of generations, that lesson became carved into entire populations like an invisible scar. This was not a conscious agreement between humans and predators. It was evolution quietly removing the reckless animals while allowing the cautious ones to survive. The great predators living today are largely descended from ancestors that learned one brutal rule: getting too close to humans rarely ended well. That history completely changes how a wild animal may perceive you in the darkness. To us, the shadow of a wolf moving between the trees feels terrifying. From the wolf's perspective, however, the unknown human standing near a fire may appear just as dangerous. Part of what makes us threatening is our unpredictability. A sleeping deer will still behave like a deer when it wakes up. A sleeping human could suddenly switch on a flashlight, stand upright, shout, strike back, produce an unfamiliar weapon, or reveal that several other humans are nearby. Approaching us may create consequences the predator has no reliable way to predict. Large predators dislike that kind of uncertainty because a single wrong calculation can cost them their ability to hunt or even their life. This explains why caution often overpowers hunger when a predator discovers a human campsite. Still, one obvious question remains. If predators are naturally suspicious of us and have evolved to keep their distance, why do attacks on humans sometimes happen? Human attacks do occur, and pretending otherwise would ignore the evidence. There are documented cases involving bears, mountain lions, wolves, and other large carnivores. However, when researchers study those encounters closely, they usually discover that the circumstances were very different from a predator simply hunting a sleeping camper. In fact, most attacks do not happen while someone is resting quietly inside a tent. The same warning signs and risk factors tend to appear again and again. The first, and perhaps most common factor, is food. When a wild animal learns to associate campsites with meals, its perception of humans begins to change. It no longer sees only unfamiliar people, strange shelters, and artificial objects. It also sees coolers, garbage bags, cooking equipment, and an opportunity to obtain calories without the exhausting work of a normal hunt. Once a predator connects human presence with easy food, the entire relationship enters far more dangerous territory. Its natural caution may slowly weaken each time it receives a reward for approaching. The campsite stops looking like a mysterious threat and begins to resemble an open pantry in the middle of the forest. The second major factor is desperation. A healthy predator capable of hunting normal prey has little reason to gamble its life by approaching a human. An animal that is sick, badly injured, starving, elderly, or no longer able to hunt effectively may make choices it would normally avoid. When survival is hanging by a thread, even deeply rooted instincts can begin to fracture. Hunger can push an otherwise cautious animal across boundaries it respected for its entire life. The third factor is surprise. A hiker may unexpectedly cross paths with a mother protecting her young. Someone may accidentally corner an animal or step too close to its resting place without realizing it. A predator may suddenly feel trapped, threatened, or unable to escape. In those situations, the attack is usually defensive rather than predatory. The animal does not attack because it has decided the human looks like food. It attacks because, for a few critical seconds, the human appears to be in immediate danger. There is one revealing detail hidden inside nearly every collection of attack reports. What rarely appears is a healthy predator calmly discovering a sleeping person, approaching without provocation, and deciding to turn that person into dinner. That scenario dominates horror movies and late-night campfire stories, but in the real wilderness, it remains extraordinarily uncommon. There is also another fascinating element that helps explain why sleeping humans are so difficult for predators to interpret. Wolves and other social hunters are experts at reading relationships, behavior, and hierarchy. Their survival depends on recognizing which animal is dominant, which one is vulnerable, and which one might fight back. They constantly study posture, movement, eye contact, fear, confidence, aggression, and submission. Those signals help them calculate whether approaching another animal is worth the danger. A sleeping human, however, offers almost none of that information. The person does not display submission. The person does not show aggression. There is no visible panic, no attempt to flee, and no clear response to the predator's presence. Instead, the human remains motionless, quiet, and strangely indifferent. To an animal that survives by reading behavior, this absence of signals can be deeply unsettling. It is like looking at a locked door and having no idea what might be waiting on the other side. The predator cannot confidently determine whether the silent figure is helpless, dangerous, or part of a much larger group. That missing information creates uncertainty. In the wild, uncertainty usually encourages retreat because approaching something you do not understand can transform one careless step into a fatal mistake. When a powerful predator cannot fully read the situation, the safest choice is rarely to move closer. Most of the time, it quietly disappears back into the darkness. This brings us to the deepest truth behind the entire mystery. For thousands of years, human beings had very real reasons to fear whatever moved beyond the reach of the firelight. Our ancestors slept in landscapes filled with predators that were larger, faster, and physically stronger than they were. They built rough shelters, kept fires burning through the night, and rested close together for protection. Even while trying to sleep, they remained alert to every branch snapping or leaf shifting somewhere between the trees. Back then, fear of the darkness was not an irrational weakness. It was a survival instinct that helped keep people alive. But over thousands of years, the balance of power slowly began to change. Humans spread across nearly every continent and entered almost every major ecosystem on the planet. Our communities grew larger, our tools became more effective, and our ability to organize made us increasingly difficult for predators to confront. Eventually, wild animals had no choice but to adjust to our expanding presence. Predators learned that wandering too close to humans could bring consequences far more dangerous than the reward. Populations that developed caution had a better chance of surviving beside us. Those that repeatedly underestimated humans were gradually removed from the landscape. This is why nature does not look at you in quite the same way you look at nature. When you hear something moving outside your tent, your imagination may instantly fill the darkness with teeth, claws, and glowing eyes. Your mind begins creating threats from every unidentified sound. Yet if an animal really is standing somewhere beyond the fabric of your tent, there is a good chance it is evaluating you in almost the same way. It may not be wondering whether it can attack you. It may be trying to decide whether approaching you is worth the risk. In most situations, the answer is no. The real-world numbers support this conclusion in a surprisingly powerful way. Every year, millions of people camp, hike, and sleep in regions inhabited by bears, wolves, mountain lions, and other dangerous predators. Despite that enormous amount of contact, predatory attacks on sleeping campers remain exceptionally rare. The chances of being attacked by a large predator while asleep are dramatically lower than our instincts and imaginations lead us to believe. That does not mean an animal is never nearby. As you close your eyes and lie awake wondering whether something might be watching from the darkness, you may actually be right. A predator could know perfectly well that you are there. It may have caught your scent hours earlier. It may have heard you unpacking equipment, preparing food, talking, or moving around inside the tent. It could know the precise location of your campsite without ever allowing you to notice its presence. But it is probably not waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Instead, it is making a completely different calculation. It is weighing hunger against danger, curiosity against caution, and opportunity against the possibility of injury. That animal is likely reaching the same decision that countless generations of predators reached before it. Keep your distance. Stay hidden. Do not take the risk. Somewhere deep inside the evolutionary memory of the great hunters that still roam this planet, an ancient lesson remains alive. Humans are not ordinary prey. We are unpredictable, unfamiliar, organized, and capable of becoming dangerous without warning. To a predator, we belong to a category of our own. That is why the animal outside your tent may notice everything about you and still choose to silently disappear into the wilderness. And that is precisely why, even in a forest filled with powerful predators, you can close your eyes and sleep.